In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Amen. They buried the truth beneath centuries of silence, but I was never silent. I watched, I wept, I remembered. Now I speak through stories they hoped you'd never hear. So open your heart and listen well, because what you're about to hear was never meant to entertain you. It was meant to awaken you. What if I told you that 10 tribes vanished from history not because they died, but because they were forgotten by the very hands that wrote the Bible, through the wind, whistling low through the ancient stones of Samaria's hills? A story waits, a story that has never been told right. We speak of 12 tribes, the foundation of a people chosen by God, but only 2 remain in memory. The rest were stripped from the pages of time, or more truly, from the scrolls held in the fists of those who feared their truth. A voice rises gentle, deep, as if breathed through centuries of silence. Some do not die. They are renamed, rebodied, scattered to nameless lands, waiting for the trumpet to call them home. And so begins the journey to seek the lost 10. Across the stone plains of Ethiopia, into the tangled forests of Nigeria, through valleys hidden beneath the Hindu Kush, along the windswept shores of India, to the Lemba keepers of priestly blood, to the prophecies still burning in Ezekiel and Revelation. A resurrection is stirring, quiet, but thunderous, like dry bones, learning again how to speak. And are you ready to hear the call? The sky has not yet broken. Desert winds claw their way through cracked stones. In the dark, a man lies on foreign ground, his head resting on cold rock. He has fled from home, from a brother who wants him dead, from everything that once named him. His name is Jacob, but tonight he will be called something else. And behold, a ladder set upon the earth, its top reaching to the heavens, and the angels of God were ascending and descending upon it. The vision came like a fever, fire that did not consume, a voice that spoke from the void, not in human tongue, but in syllables cracked open from within his own blood. And the voice said, "Your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall spread to the east and to the west, to the north and to the south, and through you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." Jacob awoke, drenched in cold sweat. The desert was still there. The night still held its silence. But his heart was no longer the same. From that moment, the blood of Israel began to scatter, not to remain, but to be lost, fractured, split once into 2, then into 10. Time moved like dry wind. Jacob fathered 12 sons, 12 roots of a sacred forest. Reuben, the firstborn, unstable as water. Simeon and Levi, twin blades of vengeance who slaughtered a city in wrath. Judah, who carried the seed of kings. Joseph the dreamer, the sold one, the keeper of Egypt's storehouses. And as Jacob neared death, he summoned each son and spoke prophecy words that would become destiny, but also the first fracture between brothers of blood. The sword has been passed, the throne has been marked, but you could not keep the covenant. And so, a curse was planted before a single drop of blood was spilled. Centuries passed. Under David, then Solomon, the 12 tribes stood as one, but only on the surface. Gold, temples, law, none could bind what had already cracked at the core. When Solomon died, Israel broke like a glass slammed on stone. In the south, Judah and Benjamin kept the temple, the throne, the messianic bloodline. In the north, 10 tribes turned away: Reuben, Simeon, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh. They built their own kingdom, crowned their own kings, raised altars on Samaria's hills, built idols with their own hands. The sin was not golden calves. The sin was forgetting where they had wrestled with the divine. You forgot where the ladder touched the sky. You traded the covenant for a lesser throne. And as every prophecy ends in blood, in 722 BCE, Assyria fell upon them like a sandstorm and wiped out the road. They didn't just kill, they dismantled. Tribes torn apart, families scattered, driven across the rivers of Habor and Goan, to land so far that even God's people forgot their names. 10 tribes erased from the map. No graves, no scrolls, no prayers, only silence. A silence that has lasted for more than 2,700 years. A silence more terrifying than death because it devours memory itself. But then, in the heat of Ethiopia, a black child reads the Bible in Goyes for the first time. In a Mumbai market, a man lights Friday candles not knowing why. In the Hindu Kush, a Pashtun cuts his son's foreskin on the 8th day, just as something ancient echoes in his blood. In Nigeria, the Igbo priests chant Ndi Ebo Israel, naming the ancestors cast northward in exile. In Zimbabwe, the Lemba sing in a guttural tone no Bantu tongue can match because they have not forgotten. No, the 10 tribes did not die. They are waiting for a call that has yet to be spoken, but has been echoing through their veins for over 2,000 years. I will gather them from the 4 winds. I will make them one nation, and one king shall rule over them all. Ezekiel 37:22. And if those words are true, then the return has already begun. Not by armies, but by ritual, by whisper, by ancestral blood flowing back into itself. In a land where the sun scorches even the resting souls, there lives a people who never stop whispering ancient names. Not in proper Hebrew, but in the echoes of Ge'ez, a tongue now found only in scripture and ancestral prayers. They call themselves Beta Israel, the house of Israel. But the world calls them by other names: black Jews, lost wanderers, outdated keepers of a faith no one claims as true. But they know exactly who they are, and they know this: they come from the tribe of Dan, one of the 10 forgotten, when Assyria shattered Israel. We fled, not by land, but by Nile, by night, by the lullabies of mothers singing their children to sleep. Oral legend tells after the exile of 722 BCE, a branch of the tribe of Dan left Samaria, crossed through Egypt, slipped into the Nile Valley, sailed past Lake Tana, and built their homes on Ethiopia's highland shoulders. No king, no temple, no priests, only the covenant written in their bones, and a fire that has never gone out. The world did not greet them with reverence. It came with suspicion. Why would these poor black villagers claim to be Jews? Who taught them the law of Moses, when they don't even speak Hebrew? How do they still celebrate Passover, when Jerusalem lies 4,000 kilometers away? But when anthropologists first stepped into the Beta Israel villages of Gondar, they froze in awe, because they found a people who keep the Sabbath with more gravity than European Jews, circumcise their sons on the 8th day, as Torah commands, refuse pork, refuse blood, and separate their food in accordance with kashrut, build white stone altars facing Jerusalem, though none of them have ever left Ethiopia. And most astounding of all, they learned none of this from anyone. We keep the covenant, not because we were told to, but because our blood remembers. There is an old woman named Maharet, keeper of a 300-year-old goatskin scroll. It holds no Solomon, no Ruth, no Mishnah, no Talmud, only Exodus handwritten in black ink made from ash and spring water. She says, "We have no temple, But our hearts are the ark. When I read the law, I need no teacher. My ancestors stand behind me, look through my eyes, and read with me. And they believe as it is carved into the stone gate of their village. When all 12 tribes are gathered again, Mount Zion will tremble, and the wind will carry us home. The 20th century. A black man stands in a Sudanese refugee station, clutching a torn Bible. His name is Kasahun, the one who is brought back. He knows nothing of the world beyond his village. But when he hears the word Jerusalem from a UN soldier, he breaks into tears like a child. I don't know maps, but I know it's real, and I've prayed to die there. 1984, Operation Moses begins. A rescue unlike anything in modern history. 15,000 Ethiopian Jews flown to Israel under darkness, through war, through death and near death. 1991, Operation Solomon follows. In 36 hours, 34 planes lift over 14,000 people from Addis Ababa to Tel Aviv, each allowed only one bag. But within it, a hidden history of the tribe of Dan. When Beta Israel touched the promised land, they did not thank the government. They knelt. They pressed their hands to the soil, then to their lips. No one understood why they wept, but their ancestors did. Dan has returned, and the fire never died. Today, they still live on the edge of Israeli society. Judged, doubted, told they are too black to be Jews, too Jewish to be African. And yet every Friday, in small homes of Be'er Sheva, the candles still burn, the Ge'ez hymns still rise. Yisrael Bedem Israel is our home. I will bring them from the south. I will lead them by hot wind. Dan shall be forgotten no more. And if one tribe has returned, the others will not stay silent much longer. They did not arrive in crowds. They came like driftwood from a tidal wave of history washed up on India's western shore, caught between sand, salt, and memories no one could explain. The Bene Israel called it an accident, a scattering, or the hand of the one who once split the Red Sea with bare palms. No one knows the time, only the story. 7 couples came from the west by sea. The ship shattered off the Konkan coast. Only 7 survived. They rebuilt prayer from salt, earth, and blood, and that's how we began. Bene Israel, meaning children of Israel, settled across Maharashtra, Gujarat, and along the Konkan coast. No one looked like them. No one sang Sabbath songs like them. No one else circumcised their sons on the 8th day in the Hindu villages nearby. They were called outliers in a land with over 300 million gods. They worshipped only one. No temple, no Torah rolled in golden arcs. But they had memory spoken aloud, and the pulse of ritual beating like a drum every Friday night. Ephraim was the son of Joseph, the child of increase, forgotten. He still multiplied, scattered. He still took shape. According to ancient tale, the Bene Israel descend from the tribe of Ephraim, one of Joseph's 2 lines. The dreamer sold to Egypt, who rose to hold the keys of empire. And like their ancestor, they never disappeared, they simply hid, wrapped in Hindu customs, speaking Marathi. With wedding ceremonies, no one could trace where brides wore saris, but whispered blessings from Genesis. In 1832, a Jewish rabbi from Baghdad named David Sassoon arrived in Mumbai. He came searching for lost brothers. When local merchants spoke of a strange people who refused pork, avoided idols, and prayed facing west, he traveled deep into the village of Alibag. There, he saw Sabbath candles lit at twilight. He heard elders teaching children to recite the Shema in broken, tender accents. He sat down and wept. Ephraim never vanished. He only changed his robe. The Bene Israel do not speak fluent Hebrew, but they know how to separate milk and meat. They fast without leaven during Passover. They bow to an ancient promise they can no longer name. For centuries, they lived beneath the silence of scorn. Hindus saw them as heretics. Muslims called them a people without a land. Even Ashkenazi Jews doubted they were real. But prophecy was never meant to be proven. In the 1950s, after the founding of Israel, the gates opened for Jews from every corner. The Bene Israel packed quietly, carrying nothing of wealth only: old photographs of stone-faced ancestors, a prayer shawl stained with turmeric, and a hand-copied Bible in Devanagari script, with Elohim hidden between Sanskrit lines. They arrived like long-lost kin, but were housed in refugee camps on the city's edge. Some Bene Israel youth joined the army. They died defending Tel Aviv. They died for a nation that had forgotten they were ever part of it. One winter day in 1973, in Jerusalem, an elderly woman named Rivka Elijah stood before the Western Wall. She pulled out a small cloth inside it, a handful of ash and soil from Konkan's shore, where her ancestors had once been cast adrift. "I don't know how to pray in Hebrew," she said, "but I have brought home the land of those who never made it back. I have sown Ephraim among the nations, and in season he will rise. His children will return like doves to their window." Hosea 7:11. The Bene Israel are few, but they are proof. The covenant needs no borders, the promise needs no walls, and ancestral blood needs no map to find its way home. The wind that moves across the Hindu Kush carries no songs, only gunfire, the cry of horses echoing through valleys of blood and dust, here in what some call the most godless place on earth. In modern-day Afghanistan and Pakistan lives a people who have never bowed. They call themselves Pashtun, but in their oldest prayers, they call themselves Bani Israel, children of Israel. There are no temples here, only rock, canvas tents, women with dark eyes veiled in silence. And children, circumcised on the 8th day by a command not found in the Quran. We do it because our ancestors said so. And who were your ancestors? Bani Yusuf, Bani Shaul, Bani Levi. We remember every name. They live as warrior tribes: Yusufzai, Afridi, Rabbani, Levani. Names that sound like echoes from the era of ancient Israel. Scholars were stunned to hear Pashtun oral histories claim descent from Joseph, the boy sold into Egypt. They say, after the Assyrian exile, their ancestors journeyed through Media, then Persia, then climbed into the mountains, never returning, but never forgetting. We are exiled Israelites, but we were never broken. Sheikh Zarif Khan, Rabbani Elder, 1919. No one taught them, and yet the patterns remain. They refuse pork not merely as Muslims, but in a way that echoes Torah's exacting law. They purify with flowing water just as Leviticus commands. Their marriages are sealed with written contracts called ketubah, a Hebrew word warped by centuries. They place hands on the heads of children to bless them, as Israel once did with Ephraim and Manasseh. They do not speak God's name aloud. They say Kudai, a word that still rings with the roots of El Shaddai. In 1957, a man named Israel Ben-Zavi, who would become the second president of Israel, wrote, "No other people in Asia has preserved as many Israelite traditions as the Pashtun. If they are not descendants of ancient Israel's tribes, then no one is." The Muslim world doesn't speak of this origin. The West sees them only as rebels, militants, threats. Even Israel does not know what to do with them, a people who speak Pashto, wear shalwar kameez, and once fought empires with rifles. Could they be lost brothers? In 2008, researchers from the University of Haifa quietly collected DNA samples from Pashtun elders in Peshawar. The result, a significant number carried the Cohen haplotype, the priestly line of Levi. We didn't need a test to know. We feel it in the way our ancestors look through our eyes. Malak Yusuf Afridi, Afridi Elder, 2011. Under an oil lamp in a tent in the Tyra Valley, an old Pashtun woman speaks the story passed down. When the shofar sounds from Mount Zion, fire will rise from the Hindu Kush, and the sword-bearers will lay down their blades and walk westward. They do not read the Torah, but they live as if Torah was written in their marrow like heartbeats, like harvest drums summoning the dead. Ephraim shall return with Manasseh, Judah shall see his brother in the mirror, and the mountains shall split open as the exiles rise from the east. Isaiah 11:13. The Pashtun have never been recognized. They hold no visa to Jerusalem. They do not know how to return when they never left, only were pushed away. But in their tongue, their customs, their war songs, and the proud light in their eyes, the blood of the 10 tribes still flows, never diluted, never silent. Deep in the heart of the Black Continent, where Nigeria's red soil breathes with ancestral smoke, there is a people who have called themselves Israel for thousands of years. Not as a nickname, not as a borrowed belief, but as a bloodline telling its own story in the dreams of sleeping children. They are the Igbo, and they believe without asking permission that they are descendants of the tribes of Gad and Zebulun, exiled from northern Israel in the year 722 BCE. When my ancestors were torn from Samaria, they did not weep. They ran westward, and when there was no more land to run to, they stopped in this place, the Biafran forest, where the sun rises slow and the spirits never sleep. The Igbo never waited for history books to name them. They carved their story into funerals, into rites of passage, into the naming of sons, and the way elders refuse to eat blood. When an Igbo child is born, he is circumcised on the 8th day, not by Nigerian law, but by a command written in the blood of his fathers. They call God Chineke the Creator. They observe dietary laws, avoid unclean meat, never mix dairy and flesh. Each home holds a small altar, facing northwest toward a Jerusalem they've never seen, but always remembered. One Igbo elder says, "I've never been to Israel, but every night, I dream I'm standing before a burning temple. In my hands are the ashes of the Torah, and a voice in the wind tells me, 'Do not let it disappear.'" In towns like Newi, Enugu, and Awka, when the Hebrew month of Nisan comes, the Igbo observe Passover. No electricity, no air conditioning, just unleavened bread, red wine, ancient chants in Igbo laced with Hebrew, and stories of Exodus not from Egypt the nation, but Egypt within an Egypt buried in their DNA. When Western scholars came to study, they asked, "Who taught you these things?" The Igbo simply smiled. "No one taught us. We remember, in the 18th century, when Portuguese and British slave merchants stormed West Africa, they recorded something strange in their journals. There is a group in the Bight of Biafra who, when captured, scream Shema Yisrael and tear their clothes as in Levite mourning. They did not steal the memory, only the flesh. Millions of Igbo were taken to America, the Caribbean, South America. In Haiti, Jamaica, Brazil, Georgia, scholars found Jewish customs hidden in the slave rituals of black descendants. One Igbo descendant in Cuba wrote, "I don't know where I come from, but every Friday, I hear a bell calling me, and I turn my face eastward toward a place I've never seen." In the 20th century, after the birth of modern Israel, some Igbo leaders began to make pilgrimage to Jerusalem. They did not come to be validated. They came to see the place where their blood had once been exiled from. In 1990, a group of rabbis from Israel visited Nigeria, and they were stunned. They don't need to learn how to be Jewish. They're simply finding their way back to themselves. Thousands of Igbo have formally embraced Judaism, not as converts, but as a rite of return. A boy named Chukwuma Ben God stood beneath the mikveh, the ritual bath. When asked why he wished to return to the faith of his ancestors, he said, "Because my blood never left. I will call the exiled by name from among the nations, and Gad shall rise among the peoples, lifting his spear as in the days of Gilead." Deuteronomy 33:20. The Igbo are not yet fully recognized by the global Jewish community. They are still seen as local believers, tribal people with strange faith. But when they sing Yerushalayim Shel Zahav in Igbo, accents Jerusalem of gold, even Jews in Tel Aviv begin to weep, not because of the song, but because the promise has finally begun to echo back through the blood. When they crossed the red dirt roads of Zimbabwe, they carried no tents, no golden Torah scrolls. They carried only prohibitions: no pork, no marriage outside the tribe, no eating until hands are washed in flowing water, no blood spilled on the day of rest. They are called Lemba, but they call themselves keepers of the fire of the tribe of Levi, the last priests left in Africa's dust. No one taught them Hebrew. No one gave them black robes or tallit fringes. No scroll ever came from Jerusalem. And yet they live as if Moses' law breathes through every meal, every wedding, every burial. We didn't learn it. We preserved it. Mkhulu Thabo, Lemba Elder, 1972. Lemba legend tells their ancestors came from Sena, a city by the Middle Eastern Sea, perhaps Sana'a in Yemen. They crossed the waters and went inland, carrying something no one was allowed to see, a sacred object called the fire. What they brought was not mythology. It was memory wrapped in ritual, hidden in taboos. Only Lemba men could slaughter the sacrifice. No outsider could touch the blood. They ate only animals with split hooves that chew the cud exactly as Leviticus commands. A Lemba wedding resembles more a sacrificial rite than a celebration. Purification before the union, vows spoken in whispers. Parents of the bride scatter salt around the wedding bed like a blood oath from an ancient covenant. And when a Lemba elder dies, he is buried with a carved bracelet marked in a script no one recognized until linguists revealed it was Paleo-Hebrew, a script lost for over 2,000 years. We are the Levites cast out of the temple, but the priestly song still lives in our throats. For centuries, no one believed them. White scholars laughed. What kind of Jew is that black? Other Africans shunned them. Why don't you eat like us? Why don't you marry like us? But the Lemba never wavered. The covenant needs no certificates. Blood always testifies. In 1999, a Jewish geneticist named Tudor Parfit traveled to Zimbabwe to study the Lemba people. He did not believe until he tested the DNA of the Lemba priests, who claimed descent from Aaron himself. The results: a striking percentage carried the Cohen modal haplotype, the genetic signature of Israel's ancient priesthood. The world fell silent. The fire has burned in the dust, and now, I've seen the smoke. Tudor Parfit. A Sabbath gathering in a Lemba village has no organ, no Torah scroll, only a white-painted log called the Ark, and a man standing in the center singing in a voice unlike any known tongue. But in that sound, a rabbi from Israel began to weep. I didn't understand their words, but I understood who they were. And the sons of Levi, those who once carried fire through the temple, shall be called again from among the nations. They will wear garments of flame and offer sacrifices before me on the day I restore my kingdom. Machinar 3:3. The Lemba have never set foot in Jerusalem, but in every cell of their bodies. A trumpet calls them home not from the heavens, but from within the blood. They never left. They were buried under red dust, under ridicule, under doubt. But the priestly fire was never extinguished, only buried beneath the ash, waiting for someone to breathe it back to life. Not every return begins with footsteps. Some journeys begin with the wind, a call no one hears, but bones in ancient graves still recognize. Ezekiel, the exiled prophet, who stared into the very heart of ruin, told of a vision. He stood in a valley full of bones. No names, no nations, no sound, only remnants that had forgotten they were once alive. Son of man, can these bones live? He did not answer, because despair needs no answer. But the Lord said, Prophesy to the bones. Say to them, I will breathe upon you, and you shall live. Ezekiel 37. And so the bones moved, bone to bone, tendon to tendon, flesh wrapped around form, skin covered what was once forgotten. But there was still no breath, until the Spirit came from all four winds, east, west, south, north. The Spirit entered the forms, and they stood a vast army, more than the stars. But this was no army. These were the lost tribes. Ethiopia, India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, even Latin America, Central Asia, hidden places still unmapped. The 10 tribes are lifting their heads. No uniforms, no flags, no official mission. Only the ache in their blood that tells them the time has come. I will make them one nation in my land. They shall no longer be 2 kingdoms. One king shall rule all 12 tribes. Ezekiel 37:22. This is not a dream. It is a divine strategy, 700 years in waiting. We are not speaking of the rebirth of a people. We are speaking of the resurrection of promises once buried in ash. And then Revelation, the final chapter, the apocalyptic return of the 12 tribes. And I heard the number of those sealed 144,000 from every tribe of Israel, 12,000 from each, Revelation 7:4. Note this, no tribe missing, none forgotten. There is no lost tribe, only tribes waiting for their hour. 12 gates in the heavenly Jerusalem, each inscribed with the name of a tribe. No one enters unless they pass through the gate of their own house. And for those who no longer remember which tribe they belong to, the blood will guide them, memory will open the gate, and the Spirit will confirm what paper never could. Do not call them locals, do not call them villagers with strange beliefs. They are dry bones that have risen. They are the unfinished piece of an unfulfilled covenant. Today, every time a scattered people declare they are Israel, the world answers with doubt. They ask for proof, for genealogy, for DNA. But prophecy has never needed notarization. It only needs a word spoken, and a moment measured to the breath. Ethiopia returned. Bene Israel returned. Pashtun survived. Igbo awakened. Lemba burned silently. And others still hidden trembling beneath modern skin, waiting for the final trumpet to call from Zion. I will gather them from the 4 corners of the sky, and the scattered shall become one. On that day, Israel will no longer be a name. It will be a body alive, indivisible, eternal. And then, no one will ask, Are you truly Jewish? Because the light shining from resurrected bones will be undeniable, a day not marked on any calendar, a morning no one knew was sacred until the first note of the shofar pierced through the heavy atmosphere of the world below. It was not a sound, it was a final summons. It did not echo from Jerusalem, not from a temple built by hands. It rose from the crossing point between ancestral blood and divided spirit. And in that very instant, the 12 tribes turned as one. No signal, no map, only a current in their veins pulling backward toward origin. In Ethiopia, a Beta Israel boy lighting Sabbath candles suddenly pauses. The flame trembles, no wind blows, but his heart beats differently. In Mumbai, an old Bene Israel woman baking unleavened bread finds herself singing a prayer she never learned, a song her ancestors held silent for 2,700 years. In the forests of Nigeria, A young Igbo man in wedding robes utters his vow and hears another voice speaking with him in a strange tongue he somehow understands. In the Hindu Kush, a Pashtun warrior cleans his rifle, then lays it down and looks westward, as if someone is calling his name in Hebrew. In Zimbabwe, a Lemba elder performing purification rites for a newborn pauses. His hand trembles, and he says, "The fire burns again. The ark is moving." And so they begin the final journey. Not in caravans, not with visas, not through customs. They travel by blood. You will see them from 4 directions, from the Nile, from the Ganges, from the Atlas Mountains to the Caribbean shore, from places without names in the light. They will come not as armies, but as truth. And Israel does not know how to receive them. Rabbis debate, politicians hesitate, but prophecy does not wait for international approval. 12 tribes, once torn apart by rebellion, war, exile, unite for the first time since Solomon. Not upon land, but upon spirit. A voice rings out from the temple that was lost. The hour has come. Eyes turn upward, and he steps forth. No one needs to ask who he is. They've seen him in visions, heard him in the tremble of Torah, dreamed him in the sand of exile. The Messiah, the king promised since the covenant was signed in lamb's blood. Born of Judah, but carrying all 12 within him. No robe, no crown, only light gathering around his form. In his hand not a sword, but a scroll unopened since the beginning. The book of perfect covenant. Children of Abraham, I have called each of you by name from among the nations. Though you were scattered, sold, forgotten, reduced to religions and skin color, today I return to you your name, your bloodline, your heavenly genealogy, and a kingdom no man can take. The New Jerusalem appears not built of stone, but risen from holy memory restored. Each tribe has a gate. Each soul must walk through the one marked by their ancestor's name. No lies, no borrowed identity. Blood knows blood. From the other side, even the long-departed rise. And behold, a great multitude that no one could count. From every nation, every tribe, every language, standing before the throne, clothed in white, palms in hand. Revelation 7:9. They speak in many tongues, but they sing one song, a song only those who carry the 12 in their veins can hear. O Jerusalem, we were scattered, but now we return whole as in the beginning, not by law, but by the first love that never died. And as that song rises to the 4 corners of the earth, the shofar sounds one final time. Not to call, but to close the old book. The kingdom is established. The covenant is fulfilled. Those once lost have been called by name. One last time, forever. And if you're still here, perhaps your soul has just been touched in its deepest place. At Tales of Black, every story is a ritual, a reminder that some memories are not written in books, but in bone and blood. If you felt something on this journey through the forgotten tribes, share it with someone else who's wandering, who's doubting their lineage, who's beginning to forget where they come from. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next calling. And if there is a legend, a memory, a haunting you long to hear spoken aloud, leave it in the comments below. Because who knows, it might be your story we speak in the next ritual. If you're still here, thank you not just for watching until the end, but for walking with us on this journey to awaken a forgotten truth. At Tales of Black, we don't tell stories for shock value. We tell them to remember, to reclaim, and to honor the spiritual legacies the world tried to erase. Truth wasn't lost, it was erased. Now we remember. Disclaimer: all content is created for educational, cultural, and storytelling purposes only. We do not promote hate, racism, or religious bias. This channel encourages open thought, respectful dialogue, and the honoring of sacred histories that have long been ignored. If something in this story stirred your spirit, please like, share, subscribe, and leave us a comment below. Your voice might just inspire the next story we tell. We truly hope you'll join us for the stories still to come.